This is Governor Bob Ehrlich. Good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
They're Dr. Politics. He's the one to see. Breaking down the news with sharp analysis. From Congress halls to campaign trails, he tells the truth when all else fails. They're Dr. Politics, Dr. Politics, exposing the spin, the lies and tricks. Dr. Politics, Dr. Politics, he calls it straight, no politics as usual. Love from backroom deals to primetime fights. He sheds some light and sets things right. Debates, elections, policy. He cuts through all the DC sleaze. Oh, Dr. Politics, he's got the facts. Dr. Politics, no holding back. Dr. Politics, go away. Dr. Politics, he's got the facts. Dr. Politics, no holding back. Dr. Politics,
Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Again, it is Friday, January 9th. 9 days cookie-free, 2026.
Dwight, I just decided to check on the national day calendar to see what day it was. Because this is a thing that's based on promotion. You basically apply and you pay a fee or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things on there is National Law Appreciation Day. So that's a good day.
Yes, it is. We believe in law and order, wish the good people in, the good people in Minnesota do.
Or Portland.
Yeah.
But
it's just
the typical places, right? Where have we heard about issues in Minneapolis and Portland before?
I know. It's like, I tell you, and the way the media, by the way, the media, they just, just promote, they gave the mayor and the governor, it's like a free open mic to say whatever the hell they want to say, whether it's true or not. And evidence contradicts what the governor and the mayor are saying there.
All right, you got to think about who these guys are, right? Mayor Frey and Governor Walz, who's not going to run again after this whole Ethiopian scam, basically bringing him down.
The Somali, yeah.
Somalis are bringing him down.
And I mean, we had, I know we had on our club, so we had a great article on Mayor Fry, where he basically, talks about it. And that's actually one of our better stories on usually our Maryland stories do the best, but this is our first non-Maryland story that's doing really well in a while. And I think, a lot of it is crazy. And you got the same thing happening in Portland. And you know what they're doing, Don? They are recreating 2020. That's what they want. They want to have riots. I mean, was it last night in D.C. they were all marching down Connecticut Avenue to the White House, blocking traffic and so on to celebrate a lawbreaker. I mean, the woman gunned the car towards ICE agents. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I have some general questions, about the tactics of ICE. Since they started doing these big sweeps and everything like that. But what happened in this case, the reporting was bad from the start, and more video comes out, and then you're like, well, it's not once again, surprise, surprise, it's not really like the media portrayed this, and
No.
this woman isn't quite so innocent after all. And you kind of have to, lean towards what law enforcement does in this case. They're trained to do certain things, and look, she's an activist. She had an agenda, and so that's what happens. I don't know. I mean, I still have the young woman that was killed during the J6
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Well, this year, did you notice J6 was not? They didn't have much fanfare, as in years past. It seems like because that's like their 4th of July for lefties, January 6th.
Yeah.
Although Jamie Raskin did come out and make a statement on January 6th.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats are trying to keep that alive. I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, it's been 5 years, right, since that point in time. I have a problem with the MAGA people who are still fighting about election fraud and stolen election from 2020. It's like, look, it's 2026. We're more than 5 years past this. Okay, it's done. It's over. Biden had his chance. Trump's back in office. Why are you still worrying about all of that stuff? You've got to move on. I mean, I couldn't stand it. I don't know about you, but I couldn't stand it. After the whole Gore Bush thing, and the Democrats wouldn't let that
By the
go.
way, the Democrats still have not accepted that election. Democrats have yet to accept that President Bush won in 2000. I mean, you've got everyone from Hillary Clinton to Al Gore saying that Bush wasn't the legitimately elected president in 2000.
Well, and Stacey Abrams never conceded the race, I believe, in Georgia, right, for governor.
Yeah, no, she has not. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, look, at some point in time, you have got to move past this stuff.
I know. It's like, don't they have an organization called MoveOn.org? I mean, come on, let's move on, guys. Move on.
It does make me wonder about Minneapolis, though. I mean, it's like because it's kind of like, oh, shades of George Floyd and all this stuff. I mean, there are some issues with, I mean, George Floyd was not the most innocent person in the world either, but he became the martyr and he became the cause.
It's like that our late great philosopher of the 21st century, or 20th century, I should say, Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? And I think he was arrested like twice after that whole stuff. He got arrested twice after that on drug charges.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Rodney King was a big deal for a long time, right? But now it's you can pick another person. You can pick George Floyd, Tawana Brawley, the brown kid, all
Big
these
Mike.
They just they focus on these things for a certain period of time and they try to raise them up to 11. Like some of these people were troubled, and there were issues there, but if the media can, they're going to jump all over law enforcement. Especially, I mean, ICE is definitely a lightning rod because it relates to Trump and his immigration policy, which is not popular, obviously, with the liberals. But look at immigration. I mean, it's basically slowed to a trickle, legal immigration across the border, since Trump came in and took over, and they cracked down, they got tough. It's a completely different scenario now.
Yep, and I think I mean, the Democrats are distracting from this the fraud case. But Maryland also has the Baltimore Sun whistleblower has challenged Westmoreland, SNAP, and various other benefits fraud cases in Maryland on similar to Minnesota and California, and even Mississippi is caught up in this.
Right, and Mississippi's been prosecuting people.
Yes.
People have, they've pled guilty. They're going to go to prison and things like that. I mean, it's fraud with these benefit programs, and this was, a lot of this was COVID era stuff in the case of in Minnesota. But this is part of the problem with our government. We dole out a lot of money and we don't really know where it's really going. It's so easy to rip off the government. My wife talks about, if you here in Montgomery County, we've got this Chinese community. They run this, like these little centers for senior citizens, and they've got a whole fleet of minibuses, right? They do all these activities. My wife's late aunt, who's Korean, she was part of one of these groups, and maybe hers was more of a Korean group, but they were obviously getting government money to run these centers, and they were being her aunt was being paid to show up every day. So I know, I'm sure it's whatever those guys were receiving, they took a small amount, $5, $10, whatever, and they gave it to every senior that showed up, and then they kept the rest. They weren't doing anything necessarily that was wrong. I guess it was still fell within the guidelines, but it's like, what are we doing here? It's like you're paying the seniors to show up on top of everything else. Like, something is wrong with the system.
I think the government shouldn't be in that business, frankly. Why are we? You have community groups. You have community groups that the communities do. Why is the government funding these community groups? I don't care, whether they're Chinese, they could be Germans. I had a neighbor that used to belong to a German club, had another neighbor that was part of an Italian club. They didn't get taxpayer money for their clubs. They met up once a month, and went out to I think once a quarter they'd all go out to a nice Italian place for dinner. The Germans would go polka dancing and so on. But we should. Also, I tell you one thing which really is infuriating is I heard nowadays in Maryland, when you call the state up for anything, you got to push one for it. Doesn't automatically just take you into the English. You got to push one to have English, otherwise it starts talking in Spanish to you. Which is, what is the matter here? We still live in America, why are, I always thought in the old days, you come to America, you learn English, you assimilate, you don't balkanize yourself. And it's not just with the Hispanic community, we're seeing it with a lot of other, with the Chinese communities. The biggest one was, remember back when Democrats used to believe in deporting illegal immigrants, Don, back when Elian Gonzalez came over, and they used force to deport that illegal immigrant. But the uncle had been here for about 20 years and he still couldn't speak English.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have a cousin whose husband taught in the California schools, and he was in Chino area, but I remember he told me this was a couple of decades.
Was too, right? Wasn't that where that movie was? The school was in Chino. That school from Stand and Deliverance.
I don't know. Maybe it was, but
it was the guy from.
It definitely was a rough area, and this my cousin's husband is a very nice, kind of soft-spoken guy and all this kind of stuff. Not a confrontational guy. So, but he had a hard time teaching that school system. But one of the things that drove him crazy was just that, they would have 20 or 30 languages, because of all the immigrants are coming in, and they were kind of expected to, in essence, teach every ethnic group in their native tongue or find a way to get that done. There wasn't assimilation. It's like, he just thought, this is America. It's like, why are, if they've come over here, they need to learn to speak English. The English language will get you a lot further than if you just are speaking Vietnamese or Chinese or whatever.
And I'll tell you, credit to the Vietnamese immigrants that came here. They all learned English. They're thriving, today, their kids and grandkids are thriving. Like our friend Dr. John, his mom's from Vietnam. and Dr. John is really thriving. And I mean, and Chris, I'm sure you're seeing this. I mean, you got kids in MCPS. I'm willing to bet when I don't know, do they still send notes home, or is it just now all emails?
No, they'll occasionally send some notes home, but I think the theme that I'm picking up on here is we've reached a point where accommodation used to be a nice gesture. Now it's expected.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the era of entitlement, and everyone feels entitled to whatever their immediate priority is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got 1,000 people interpreting what their entitlement is, you have a fractured society. There's no accountability. There's no expectation of assimilation. And if you fail to accommodate, somehow you're wrong. And I don't know exactly when this happened, but it seems as though over the last 20 years, we have certainly conceded the narrative from being accommodating to now it being expected. And I think you've heard some folks talk about fraud being framed as, the goodwill of the American taxpayer has been taken for granted.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I remember back in the 70s and 80s, like my mom, she would go and teach English to people who didn't speak English, who came over. There'd be, and she wasn't the only one. There were other people that did that too, like in neighborhoods when you had like people that maybe did. There was an Italian family around the corner from us where my mom would teach them English, right? The kids, and the parents teach them how to speak English and so on. We didn't have, I mean, today, and I remember MCPS used to do English classes in the high schools in the evenings, night school, they teach English, right? They're not even doing that anymore, I think. It's like, because, and I think, and even if they were, I don't think half the people would go, because why? They got so much accommodate. You go to the DMV, you can speak Spanish, they have Mandarin language interpreters for you. And
my wife came on as a political asylee, and she could not speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So when she went to a U.S. high school, she had to learn English immediately, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's almost as if the expectation is reversed. Not that this person coming here for whatever reason has any expectation of trying to learn the language and integrate. It's how can you accommodate me? How can you bend? And then if you can't, then you're the one that's failing, not my inability to learn or assimilate.
Remember Barack Obama told us all to learn Spanish. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it's crazy how all of this stuff is. But Don, moving on a little bit, is our old friends over at CBS. What do you think of their new kinder, gentler CBS now?
Well, what's kind of funny too, though, is just that. So Barry Weiss, when
he's not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. Probably.
No, but Paramount bought her Free Press, right?
Yeah.
And then basically put her in charge of the news division, which obviously had the liberals scurrying for cover, and several of them have left the network, and they've now put Tony Dokoupil in there for the evening news. And I mean, he's actually a fairly good egg, but he's married to Katie Tour, right? This is like Kellyanne Conway and George Conway. It's like, oh my God.
Or Mary Madeline
and Carville, right?
Yeah. But I tell you, it's just amazing. If CBS is only 10% less left-leaning, I don't think most of America will even notice.
Well, I mean, all of that kind of news is dying, right? I mean, cable news struggles too. I mean, Fox is doing fine, but MS Now, as it's called, and CNN, their ratings are struggling.
Even the other conservative news channel, CBN, is struggling, from what I understand. CBN. Yeah. Well, I think after Pat Robertson is passing, I think nobody really tunes into CBN as much.
This is an era of like who's watching a lot of these broadcast channels, whether or not they're the mainline channels that we grew up with, CBS, ABC, NBC, or things on cable. I mean, I don't have cable anymore, so I watch nothing like that. My wife, is only watching YouTube stuff, so she picks a little bit of Fox and a little bit of that or whatever, and that once you start on one thing with the algorithm with YouTube, it just kind of sends you along a path. You know, some of it's news, some of it's just weird stuff. Like, I don't know. She's from Korea, and like Chris. I mean, when my wife came to this country in 1974, she didn't know English, and so she had to get her immersion program, which was not easy 51 years ago,
Yeah.
to learn English in Prince George's County. That was just not easy, but she managed to go through that. But so she was watching something for Korea, and so all of a sudden, she gets onto this program where this guy is like a farmer and he's raising pigs, and there was a run to the litter, and so the farmer couldn't, he just couldn't kill this little pig, and they raised this pig. This pig now actually hauls like a cart through this little town in Korea, and it's like the celebrity. Cars move out of the way. He knows how to find his way home.
It's nice to know that Wilbur from Charlotte's Web is.
I don't know. Yeah, Wilbur. I mean, maybe it's a future of Animal Farm. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just, and this kind of just leads you down these funny paths. But in a lot of ways, it's more entertaining than watching cable news.
I find YouTube is more entertaining. Like, there's this guy, Big Action Jim, I think is his channel. He does Showa era. He's basically doing all the Godzilla kaiju movies from Toho Studios over the years, and Daiei Studio, which did Gaimura. But it's very entertaining. He's actually done a lot of details on there. And, he was talking about how a lot of, how Sakazawa, who is the main guy behind a lot of the guys, because in the 70s, Sakazawa became more environmentally friendly. That's why you got the smog monster, and you had these space aliens and so on that were lecturing humanity on why, we're, ruining our environment and stuff like that. But it's
my wife has noticed too, though, is that so there's a channel. It's called the Outdoor Boys, and this guy he's been very successful just doing these things. He lives in Alaska, and he goes out and does all these kind of interesting things, and gets 10 million views at a time or something like that, and whatnot. But someone else has created another sub channel that's kind of like a review or secondary thing of the Outdoor Boys. And they basically are piggybacking on the success of the Outdoor Boys, right? Look at Victor Davis Hanson. He's getting ripped off to people have used AI to generate Victor Davis Hanson material that is not his, and they have him saying things that he never said. So there's the good and the bad. It gets a little tricky as you wade through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, AI has kind of ruined YouTube. The ones I hate the most are the ones that they're just very clickbaity. It's like they got this one where why Ray Romano hated his co-stars, and it's they can't. It's AI when they can't pronounce Ray Romano, and it can't pronounce Patricia Heaton's name. But it's like stuff like that, but there's a lot of educational stuff on YouTube too. I mean, there's a lot of things that are learning, and there's actually a guy, Chris. I need to send you his information. He kind of is like my Republican toolbox, but he actually does little videos, like 5-minute videos on campaigning, how to run an insurgency campaign, how to do this, how to do that. Really good guy. I should. Let me email you his contact information. He's a good guy to know. Just Yep,
that'd be great. Thank you.
But we've got. I mean, if you want to learn stuff, but the most frustrating ones are those 5-minute crafts they have on YouTube. None of those things are 5 minutes. I've watched a couple of those. You can't do that in 5 minutes. Only way you do in 5 minutes is you get the. You record them, put them up at triple speed, so it looks like you're done in 5 minutes. But.
I mean, YouTube is also a place you go to say, because you don't get really much in the way of instruction manuals anymore when you buy stuff.
No,
I'm not quite sure how to put this together. You got to go to YouTube to go try to find people who've done that before. I mean, I bought a dash cam. This is the
Mm-hmm.
third dash cam I bought, but the first one I decided to install. I got so lazy with the other ones, and but I thought, okay, I'm going to put this one in. I'm like, well, where in the heck is the best spot to put it in this car? Because the cigarette lighter, part of it is in
They
the,
even have this.
and it's like, well, this isn't convenient to run, but it came with an OBD, cable as well, and so I went to the web, went to YouTube and said, okay, how should I do this? And it gave me some pointers as to the best thing to do, and it's not perfect, but it works. It's like after having somebody hit my car and leave me stuck with a bill on fixing my car, I'm like, I'm getting a dash cam because any kind of motion will turn the camera on.
Yeah. I mean, also, like Bats is a big believer in that. He's got a 4K dash cam now, and he actually runs the wire. He actually ran the wires under the seats, and he did a really good job with it, because he has a front and a rear dash cam,
Yeah. Well, that was part of it, though. It's like I was watching one of these things about it. I couldn't find one specifically for the Lexus, sedan. They had a guy who was doing the SUV, and I'm like, he was taking apart parts of the dash, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. So mine is a little more jerry rigged, but it works. I mean, I ran the wire and cable and down there, and, OBD port is much more convenient than trying to put it where my power is in the center console. It's like there isn't anything long enough that I can run a cable all the way back to the center like that, where the armrest is. So
yeah. If I just do the next time I go to Florida, have some Bats install my dash cam for me.
yeah, during this process, I learned what all those little black dot things are on my windshield that I never knew what they were. So I'm like, oh,
What are they?
it's so all those things, that is a fusion adhesive for your windshield.
Oh,
So
okay.
and so if you actually look at your windshield, besides the fact that you'll get a lot at the top, you'll see some on the side, and that helps. That is what they do at the factory to put your windshield in place and keep it in place.
Oh, okay.
So, but you can put, I did mount my camera right on it, so it faces out. The camera itself is just below that, but the mount is right on the dots, which they said was perfectly safe.
I would love to be able to tap into my existing cameras on my car just to have those. And if I could have a hard drive, have it record the video while I'm driving, and it just records, that stuff. Which, in theory, I think it should be doable.
Yeah.
Am I going to bother doing it? Probably
yeah. I
not.
mean, the one I got, it came with a 32 gigabyte SD card that just rewrites, and it records in 1 minute segments, 4K. Basically, I hope to never have to really use it for anything, and all of that. It has an app, so I can connect it to the app, and then have that stuff there. But now it's a peace of mind thing after that whole just ridiculous thing of just finding my car damaged in a parking lot.
I've had that happen when I went to the Costco's in Wheaton. My old Yukon, somebody scraped the side of my car. And I park far away from everyone. How do you do that?
Well, I agree with you on that, because I swear, the only thing I could figure out when I saw the damage, when I spotted it, was it had to have, would have happened at the gym. And I park way out there, where I don't want anybody near me. And I'm like, did somebody hit me here?
Yeah.
This early in the morning? That's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, also this week in Maryland, we've got a whole issues. But before we get to that, excuse me, the president, we have liberated Venezuela.
Yeah, viva la Venezuela.
It's like, I don't know when this, and I tell you, one of our writers, Ian Schwartz, his cousin Jimmy wrote an article about how we can choke off Cuba now just by massing troops in South Florida and moving artillery pieces around in Guantanamo Bay, bringing, encircling the island with some destroyers and so on. Yeah, I'm sure you put enough pressure like that, I think he'll up and leave the country. And then Thomas Jefferson's prophecy about Cuba becoming part of the United States will become the state of South Florida. And but by the way, your esteemed opponent and your other esteemed opponent, David Trone, they both went out of their way to basically say this is horrible.
It shows how little they actually know about foreign policy, national security, and quite frankly, the Southern Hemisphere. I was fortunate enough. Go ahead.
No, it's funny because I remember when Democrats used to at least stand up to communism, and now they're just embracing the communists.
I think it honestly doesn't even matter what the facts are anymore.
Yeah,
I spent 2 years at U.S. Southern Command. I actually worked on the initial war plans all the way back in 2017. If we ever had to go in, we started identifying military and dual use facilities. We found a surprising number of Russian and Chinese interests that were starting to intermingle with some of these targeting concerns that we had. So this is not a new problem. This has been a concern for as long as anyone can remember at U.S. Southern Command, since they went to the nationalized system. And the fact that we have national security concerns with Russia and China, and then the fact that we have Maduro, who has been, quite frankly, committing human rights atrocities one after another, causing a massive fleeing of Venezuelans, there is no reason to not celebrate this. And then if you look at Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, this is well within the president's authority to effectuate a response in light of our interests. And then more importantly, the War Powers Resolution does not require consultation with Congress. It requires notification within 48 hours. And when you've got something this secretive, that's going to be event driven, in other words, weather, circumstance, and conditions, you wouldn't consult Congress. You execute the mission under Article 2, Section 2 authority, and then you notify Congress within 48 hours. And then you have up to 60 days of combat operations before you would require additional authorizations. The fact that they wanted to call this illegal either tells me they haven't read the Constitution or they're willfully ignoring it.
Yeah, these are the same people, I think, if they're around in 1989 when Nicolae Ceausescu was brought down. They would have said, how horrible. He was a freely elected, blah, blah. They would have defended Ceausescu and Erich Honecker in 1989, frankly, That is how, I'll say it, this is how deplorable the modern DSA Democrats have become.
There's one other point that they overlook. Maduro was not acting as the head of state when we effectuated the pending indictment. If we don't acknowledge the election from 2024, he's just an individual claiming authority. So we arrested a non-state leader. So the fact that they said that this was an invasion of Venezuela and the seizure or kidnapping of a leader, that's just simply false. They were the ones that came out and acknowledged that he was not the duly elected leader. The election was full of fraud. So whenever we effectuated that indictment, and this was in fact a law enforcement exercise, a law enforcement event, it was military in support of it. It was just arresting him as an individual, not as a head of state.
This is no different than what we did to Emmanuel Noriega.
Very similar.
Except this guy didn't run off into the Papal Nuncio and ask for sanctuary, and we didn't have the rock music for a week to get him out.
And I think here there was a legitimate concern because he did have control over them. I mean, the idea is there an imminent threat? And whether it was the drugs, the national security concerns with China and Russia, or other concerns, and I would imagine this was an intelligence-driven operation, there is imminence, and there is, we're looking at in this case, self-defense on behalf of U.S. interests. So I don't see their concern. I think this is just Trone and Delaney trying to out-left each other. And you're going to see this again and again and again as they try to distinguish themselves from each other. and make these
Hey,
absurd
which one do you think's
claims.
going to go run to New York to get a picture taken, meet with him in prison?
Well, Trone came out already on the Minneapolis issue. He
Yeah,
came
he
out and
did.
said that ICE is a terrible thing, that this is a terrible example of abuse of power, not ignoring the facts, ignoring anything other than just trying to ride the wave of far left outrage, selective
Now,
outrage at that.
I mean, what David Trone is talking about done is, let's say you're a security guard in a bank. You see a guy pull a gun out, and you have an opportunity to kill the guy before he can rob the bank and do harm to others. But David Trump would say, well, the bank robber wasn't doing, he was just trying to make a withdrawal from the bank. They just shot him dead in cold blood while he was just trying to withdraw money from the bank. Never mind, he didn't have an account at the bank. It was an illegal withdrawal he was trying to do. It's like these people are on the side of lawbreakers, criminals, and thugs.
Well, I will say it's a tragedy that this occurred, but it was a tragedy that was completely preventable with just simple compliance. Like, I can't believe what we're accepting as leadership out of Minneapolis right now in Minnesota. That's not leadership to stoke the anger and fears of your far left supporters. Leadership is saying, we're going to examine this problem and we're going to look at how we can effectuate federal law enforcement that's consistent with federal law, and then ensure that these situations don't escalate. I feel terrible that this woman died. We should not be celebrating her death.
No, we're not celebrating the death.
And I agree in this forum, but the reality is she drove into an individual while she was being directed by her partner to drive off. I mean, those facts are undeniable, and I can't believe the level of debate and discourse around this. You can say that it was a sad incident, but it was clear that this was an attack, or at least a putting a law enforcement officer in a position of fear for his life or the life of his partner, and he right to use self-defense.
And their job in its own right is dangerous enough, frankly. The fact that they go through all of this, and you, instead of standing for the side of the police and law and order and law enforcement, you got people, what they're doing is they're basically nothing more than trashing the law, basically the people the good guys.
Well, today was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I was happy to do a post in acknowledgement of that. But I can also tell you that none of these people making these comments have ever been shot at, or they've never had a vehicle that they've had to stop or that was running at them. And I can tell you that changes your perspective when you're confronted with a deadly threat. You don't have the luxury of a slowdown and a reflection. You're responding to a moment in time where a vehicle has been weaponized, and to what extent you don't know. And if you're going to make contact with that vehicle, you have the ability to defend yourself. I can't believe how quick we are to Monday morning or armchair quarterback somebody doing a very difficult job whose life has been threatened, and then somehow demonizing it, saying, well, he could have shot the tires. He could have just moved out of the way faster. That's not how these things play out.
I know you got crazy AU professors who lost their keys last year are now going around saying, everything DHS tells us is a lie until it's not a lie. That is so, well, first of all, where were you when Joe Biden's administration was outright lying to us? Telling us the economy is doing just fine. There was no inflation. Where were you then? No, all of a sudden now, that the president's, now that our team's in charge, they discover inflation, they discover this, and we're the party of law and order. I know, and I say that on President Nixon's birthday today. He ran when he ran for 68. That was his 1968 was his law and order campaign for president, restoring order to the America. And I think we need more law and order, frankly. I know it's not in vogue to say law and order, but something. I think if you ask the residents of Montgomery County, would they rather have chaos or law and order? They'd probably vote for law and order, because something. They're fine with chaos when that chaos comes into your neighborhood. They're going to be the first ones calling 911, asking for police protection. They'll go out there and do their No Kings rallies, but I think it's utterly insane how these people have made a mockery of our judicial system.
Yeah, but I mean, back to Chris's point, which is, a good one. It's just that this is that case again where people on the other side of an issue, it's just kind of this knee-jerk reaction from people who've never been in that situation. They've never been a law enforcement officer, and they have no clue what it takes to do that and what the risks are that they face. They just see what they see, through social media. They believe what they want to believe. They, kind of law enforcement bad, especially if it's under the Trump administration, that all that kind of knee-jerk stuff. And we just see this happen just all too often, among people. I even have this. I've had this long-term problem with all the quote racial profiling, that has been the law enforcement's been accused of doing. We say, oh well, the traffic stops with blacks have been disproportionate to the population. Like, except now if you're driving, if you're driving a cruiser at night in a dark night and you pull someone over, I mean, there are a lot of cars. I mean, how are you supposed to tell who's in the car?
Yeah. You see a lot more cars with heavy tints.
You've got lots of cars now that have got tinted windows and all this kind of stuff. But they always say that these people have been picked on. I'm like, I could never quite figure out how you get picked on, particularly at night. It's like usually they don't know who you are unless they've been, once again, unless they ran their plate. But that's usually after you have some suspicious behavior. It's not like, oh, I see a black person or whatever, and I've got to go meet some kind of quota. Just to me, there's so much nonsense that goes on where law enforcement has just been put back on its heels and has a hard time doing the job that they are tasked to do.
Yeah, my wife is from West Africa, and we've had this conversation about what is the effect of racial profiling and what is the effect of an underlying traffic violation as a cause for a traffic stop. And I would agree that this component, this narrative has undermined accountability, and it's been invoked at the expense of the good order and discipline and what you've described as law and order. Because law and order is as part of a social contract. You have to agree to the benefits of law and order so that society is at least doing its part. If you're told to stop a vehicle, you stop. If you have an expectation to comply with the law, then you comply with the law. And then if there's a problem with that, it's adjudicated. But I'm amazed at how far this entire discussion has spun completely out of control, where almost any excuse is a valid excuse to not abide by the rule of law. And then we're shocked by the outcome whenever you have these confrontations.
Right. I mean, civil disobedience is okay, right? It's like it's encouraged. And then the outcome, sometimes can be tragic, like what happened in Minneapolis. And it's law enforcement's fault.
And it's somehow like, if I'm really, really upset, I can do whatever I want. And it's like, well, no, that's not how this actually works.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We are basically, there's a reason why nobody wants, like, I got a friend of mine, he's a MCPD, and he tells me he's just waiting to get to retirement and get out of the county. He goes, the recruitment numbers are low. We're not, they're not getting because nobody backs up law enforcement. He goes, if I went and somebody pulled a gun on me and I shot the guy in self-defense, I would be the one on trial, not the burglar or robber or whatever, the bad guy. Everything's upside down, as Al Gore once eloquently said.
I'll come out and say this. I've said it before. I will always support law enforcement. They have what has to be the hardest job in the country. When you're deployed and you're in a war zone, you at least know the rules and you understand the framework and you know which way to look and what to do. Yeah. The fact that these folks leave in the morning, leave their kids, their wives, their families at home, and they have no idea what they're going to encounter, and then they're demonized for exercising their judgment in deadly situations is shocking to me. And it lends itself to this inability to recruit, retain, and uphold a standard because, quite frankly, most of the people that are confronting police officers aren't upholding their end of the social contract.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Police officer goes off to, like, when we go to work, we know we're going to be home, right? Knock on wood, we're going to be home, barring, traffic jams and whatnot. But when a police officer goes to work, that's the underlying thought in the head. Is this going to be the day he doesn't come home or she doesn't come home? Is this going to be a routine police stop, or is this guy going to pull a gun and blow my head off as I approach the car? Or is the guy going to gun the car? And we've seen this on 95 as well as on 28 a few years ago. A cop pulled someone over, and as he's walking there, the guy rams his car into the police officer's car and then guns it as he's walking towards him, Stuff like that, we have happening. And, I always, make it a point to say thanks to cops, basically, when they go and, when I see them, I always like to say thanks for their service, because it's a tough job. It is a very tough job, They're not working in the laps of luxuries. I mean, they're out on hot, cold, bad weather, good weather. They're out there, keeping the streets safe, And then, I mean, honestly, I've been pulled over before. Was it for speeding? Perhaps yes, But, here's the thing. I hand my driver's license, my insurance, registration, everything, I hand it over. It takes a little. This is actually, only time I've had kind of an issue is when I was driving to CPAC when Marco Rubio was going to be there when he was running for president in 2016. And I'm thinking, like, come on, hurry up. I got to get to go see Marco. Don't, and the guy, took a little longer than he should have, I thought, I think what we should be doing with tickets now is, like, let people pay them with a credit card right there. It's like, I'll pay the fine right there. It's easy to do that than it is for me to actually find a stamp and put it in the mail, frankly. But,
yeah.
I mean,
one of the things I was thinking about too, though, is just that, why do you want to do a job where we have areas where the brass doesn't back you up, and the government is pulling your funding?
Yeah.
Why would you want to work for anybody when you don't, when the people above you that you work for don't have your back? I mean, something happens when you make that judgment call that you have to do, in a nanosecond, and then they don't back you up. Why would you want to pursue that career?
That's very true. Why would you? Yeah.
The people, folks I've found, similar to the military, I mean, they believe in what they're doing, and that's an honorable thing, and they should be thanked for their service. And it's definitely unappreciated just how much of a sacrifice they make to go and do a thankless job that puts them at risk every single day.
Mm-hmm. And it's just really sad how society is. I mean, when I was growing, we were taught to respect police officers. Now today, like kids today, they're taught, what is it? De Blasio, when he was, I told my son, if you could be pulled over and blah blah blah. And it's like, look, cops they're not trigger happy folks that are just looking to kill someone just for the fun of it, frankly. You have to give them a reason and just cooperate. Like our friend Kevin Don, he was MCPD for the law, and he says, always put your hands on the steering wheel, let them be very respectful, and he goes, and there's that's the way to do it. Staying on the same time with law and order, did you hear the president wants to get rid of the speed cameras in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, my wife told me about this. This is wonderful.
I do too. Let me tell you, that one speed camera right on K Street under Washington Circle, where you're going down. If you're not riding your brake, you're gonna get dinged with a ticket. It's not a cheap ticket; it's $100 ticket. And
I hate those things.
I do too. And thank you, President Trump, for getting rid of those speed cameras. Because those speed cameras in D.C. they were profiling everyone who lived in Maryland and Virginia. That's where all those speed cameras were. People going into Maryland or people going into Virginia.
And the problem I have with them is they make driving less safe, because all everyone does is slam their brakes on ahead of the zone, go through the zone, and then they speed up. It doesn't actually deter anything other than create a money.
No, it changes driver behavior to be less safe.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy because you get paranoid about where the cameras are, and the fines in DC are outrageous for the speed cameras.
And Montgomery counties with their Vision Zero, and they got all. I don't know if you guys have noticed, most of the speed cameras are in the middle of a hill, like on Connecticut Avenue. The Connecticut Avenue, they got a camera right by where Katya used to live.
Yeah.
By the Waterford, there's a speed camera there, and unless you're riding your brake, you're not going to be at 30 miles an hour, whatever the speed limit is there.
Yeah, that reminds me of the one in Gaithersburg near the Costco. If you take
there's one
by the Weiss, you're going down the hill, and that's where the camera is.
Yep,
and
I know that one too.
It's like I thought that when they passed the law about the speed cameras in Montgomery County, that the idea was that it was only supposed to be like school zones and for safety purposes. It's like, I don't why is this camera here?
It's an ATM for the county council.
It is. Yeah, I mean, they just took one out in Montgomery County just before the Howard County line. And because we go over to Howard County once in a while to go do some shopping. And it's just, this is a 2-lane road, and you're going down there, and there's some houses, but it's very wooded and everything like this. You can go, it's a 30-mile zone.
Yeah.
Which is actually a lot lower than it really needs to be, but it was on the downhill side of that thing again too. Is that you're kind of coming down, so you have to keep watching for all those things. Speed cameras have just made me completely paranoid. I hate it.
Well, in Georgia, when I went to visit my uncle last year in Southwest Georgia, so I don't take the interstate because I want to avoid Atlanta, right? I go through small towns where they have speed limits at 45 miles an hour. These are towns like Mayberry. I'm driving through Mayberry at 45, yet I could be on Old Georgetown Road and the speed limit there is like 30 miles an hour. And they've only got 2 lanes there. There is,
I mean, I haven't been down there since, for years, but I mean, Connecticut Avenue between East-West Highway and, and the circle.
Still right at the hill. Those are on the hill, right by BCC.
Well, no, I mean, there's
school.
between, I'm just saying Connecticut Avenue between East-West Highway and the Chevy Chase Circle.
Yeah.
It's flat. But they had what? Didn't they have 2 speed cameras on that road?
Yep. Then they with lasers, so they could target multiple cars at the same time.
It's just it's like, you need 2 of these.
Because Brian Neiman was talking about that because he used to always get tagged by that because he worked at MAL.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, okay, look, $40 is not a lot of money, and that's why the county just can rake it in because you're not getting a point on your license. You're paying $40. And so it's,
But that proves it's not about safety. If it was really about safety, you'd be getting a point also.
Right. And so, yeah, but the speed
it's
camera,
a parking ticket.
Well, and the red light cameras are horrible because I've got one near the gym up there, where I go to up in Gaithersburg, and I've learned the traffic pattern when I'm coming back early in the morning is that if I get to that point where it is, I have to hit the first traffic light right at the beginning, and if I go just fast enough, I can get through that light before it turns red. But it's a very touch and go type of situation. If there's a car in front of me, there's a 75 to 80% chance I will not get through that light, and I got to then slow down so I don't get a ticket going through the red light. And so it forces abnormal behavior. I'd be more than happy just to kind of tool along, but it's got me trained. It's like, I'm now in I need to beat the light.
I mean, have you noticed more people are stopping at yellow lights instead of blowing through the yellow?
Well, that was the other thing too. Is that, I mean, I had, you get the choice. Is like, stop at the yellow, slam on your brake, like Chris has said, which could cause an accident, or do you go through and risk a ticket and get charged?
Because you never know the car behind you
and get a point or 2.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
creates an
I would
unsafe.
go through because it's momentum. I was taught when driving, it's momentum is carrying you over. Because if you hit your brakes and somebody rear ends you behind you, like I mean, it's happened to me on the Baltimore Washington Parkway on my two Yukons and an Escalade go. You know, they these people were on a cell phone, and I know, like when you leave Goddard, you can go pretty fast, but you know, right before you get to the Beltway, people start hitting their because it slows down because there's a off ramp that takes you to Green Belt, and then there's the off ramp that takes you to and there's always so I'm slowing down, so I stop. This guy comes up so fast, he basically pushes my car into the car in front of me. And the guy, you know, like the guy didn't speak any English too, you know. And I found out later it was the guy was not the one that was driving. The wife was driving, and she was looking at her phone while she was driving.
Yep.
Uh,
What I really hate about it is that it's eliminating your discretion. It's basically saying we don't trust your judgment.
mhm.
And you see this in the supermajority state that we live in, where they don't trust the judgment of people. They basically take decisions away from you, and then they penalize you for exercising discretion. And I truly hate that concept, whether it's eminent domain for power lines or these civil penalty speeding areas that actually are more dangerous than they are helpful.
I mean,
It's this
whatever
idea that you
happened
can
to
make a
keep-
good decision.
Yeah. I mean, whatever happened to keeping up with the flow of traffic? Whatever happened to that? You know, I had a friend of mine. He got pulled over for driving too slow on Veers Mill Road when he was in high school. He just gotten his license, and he was going right at the speed limit. And the cop pulled him over because he was going too slow.
Not anymore.
Yeah, it's like you're going the speed limit. Move on. There's nothing here for you to see. I should get a medal for driving the speed limit, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
And I was telling my friend, I go,
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
do you remember when they had speed cameras on the GW Parkway?
yes, I do. I do remember those.
I'm just like,
That was
no.
back when I used to work for ACU. I would have to dodge those every morning.
Yeah, that was one of the worst ideas that ever happened.
Well, you know, Evan Glass wanted to put speed cameras on the Beltway and the ICC. He also said that somebody, Evan Glass has also said this: if a car is going and they're well below the speed limit when they hit the camera, that means they were speeding. They just hit their brakes so they wouldn't be caught. So they should get a ticket anyways, also because they really were speeding. You can't make that up. Come on. Now you're just interpreting people's driving patterns. You know, what's the little old grandma who was driving really slow? You know, she was driving slow before the camera, and she was driving slow after the camera. You know, but
Right?
we are at final thoughts time. So let's start with you, Chris. What's going on with the campaign this week?
You know, it's been a really great week, quite frankly. I spent a lot of time on WCBM and WFMD. I spent some time with Sean Casey, Bob Miller. I'll be on with Jen Charlton tomorrow, all talking about the innovation corridor, talking about the need to come up with a plan that aligns county, state, and federal level planning so that we can set the conditions for deliberate development, deliberate growth that really emphasizes the needs of local residents. And it starts with putting these things in areas that are away from schools, away from local residents, and most importantly, requiring them to have a source of energy, whether it's a small modular reactor or some other innovative technology. But we can't shed another inch of farmland for solar fields or eminent domain power lines. So it's been great getting on the radio, having these conversations, and then being able to direct everyone to the actual news release that we pushed out, or press release that's on burnettforcongress.com. And then I'll have a chance next week. I'll be out in Garrett in the afternoon. I'll be up in Frederick in the afternoon on Monday. I've got a couple of events on Tuesday and Wednesday, whether it's the Rotary Club, reaching out to a couple of different community organizations, speaking primarily about the Innovation Corridor. And then I've got a couple of fundraisers coming up next month. Once we set a date, I'd love to come on and tell you about them. But It's been great. Picked up a ton of momentum in the new year.
Yeah, and I know the Republican Club would like to have you come by in March if you're not busy on the first Thursday in March, but we'll talk as we get closer to that.
I will always make time for the Republican Club. You just tell me where to be.
Okay, we have something we'll be presenting to you that day.
Well, as long as it's not a ticket from driving on one of these roads, I'll be happy to be there.
And by the way, you know they have a speed camera on Georgia Avenue.
I didn't
When
know
you're
that.
when you're going to Olney, right before 108, there's a camera there, and I'm like, you can't go fast on this road unless it's like 1 a.m. You know.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. And you have any other appearances you've got coming up this week? Are you going to go next week to the opening day in Annapolis?
Well, you know that I'm leading a candidate course on Wednesday, so I was hoping to get out to Adam Wood's event on Wednesday, but I've got really every day. I've got 2 or 3 events where I'm either speaking at a community group, speaking with folks that are donors or interested in the campaign. So it's a busy week. But the next public event will be probably coming up in February.
Yeah. Stay in the district. Stay in the district. You know, that's more important now.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. So okay, great. Final thoughts, Donovan.
Final thoughts. Corporation for Public Broadcasting shut off the lights. They're gone. Probably will never get revived again, even if a Democrat wins the White House or Democrats take control of Congress next time around. You know, times have changed. We were just talking about earlier about CBS and all these things, but it's like, why do we need the Corporation for Public Broadcasting? Why are taxpayer dollars going to fund public media, especially the way that, you know,
And have you seen some of the stuff they've been producing yet? PBS has been producing some of the shows. Like I found this one actually entertaining. They had I think it was like a 4 or 5 part documentary on Marion Barry. They did. I found it a little bit humorous, you know, but some of this, it's very anti-American. A lot of stuff they've been pushing. Even Ken Burns' documentary he just did on the Constitution in America, I found some of the stuff a little cringy. Yeah.
Yeah, not surprising. I mean, so you know, my thing would be just like, look, you want a public broadcasting station or a national NPR station, give them money. Go out and find public support, corporate support, whatever, foundation support, and do it. If you're not going to get enough public support, then I guess you just fade away or do, you know, whatever. But it doesn't. Why do we need to have these stations on the public dole? It's very different, you know. I mean, from when the whole public broadcasting and everything like this, they were founded. I mean, the landscape has just changed, and there's just
I mean, the whole purpose initially they were like for educational purposes. They were like teaching math and spelling and stuff like that. They've come so far.
I mean,
from
you know, they were no, you know, they stayed largely out of the political realm. I mean, you had the Electric Company and Sesame Street and all these kinds of things and whatnot, and you know, LeVar, what was it, Reading Rainbow and all those kinds of things. But you know, they started to delve much more into politics.
Although I think Barney was kind of a lefty.
Yeah, probably so. but you know, but you know, it just got away from it, and you know, NPR is just terrible. So you know, I don't. They're not going to be missed when they go away. I think in the long run, even though the liberals have had this big outcry, in the long run, because we've got so much available through the internet, it's just, you know, it's not something that'll be missed by very many people. So,
I used to enjoy watching This Old House on PBS, but you know, that's a show that HGTV could probably pick up, frankly. And then again, This Old House hasn't been the same since Bob Vila left.
Yeah, I mean, things do change along that line.
I mean, they used to renovate homes and stuff. They don't even do that, and now it's all just, this is how you fix a leaky pipe. This is how you do this, and this is how you do
I mean, what Bob Vila did there. Now you've got a whole bunch of people on like HGTV and stuff like that that are doing these massive projects that are like that, but a lot fancier and, you know, with the people who have got these personalities who've just made a ton of money. So just the whole thing continues to evolve as we go along, and then they're supported by either the cable network or they're not being supported by taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
People are throwing money at them from a different angle. Republicans, shame on the Republicans who caved on the Obamacare enhanced subsidy. Now these are mostly kind of centrists. They're in
Although
some
Josh Hawley kind of shocked me on that one. Josh Hawley not supporting that one kind of shocked me a little bit.
Well, I mean, the thing is that's the House voted to extend, but Thune said it's DOA, which is good. But the Republicans who had held firm before, by they're showing cracks here, that are, and they also lack of understanding. They're caving into all this liberal, all that propaganda about how everything is people are going to be seeing all these huge rate increases and stuff like that. But please, tell me exactly what were things like before the enhanced subsidies? How did you pay for your premiums back then? Before the government basically said, we're going to pay 90% of your premium. Hello, here's a gift from the U.S. taxpayer.
Yeah. They've turned that into a way of life. They've turned the helping hand into a way of life.
Well, the Democrats, the extension is fine. What they're gunning for here is they're gunning for this to become permanent, so it becomes another entitlement, right? And so we're going to spend all this money subsidizing all these people, and a lot of them can afford to pay those premiums. A lot of them could find insurance that would be just fine for them, a lot cheaper, but they think that, oh my gosh, the subsidies, all they did was just that it moved people, because they were being covered, so much of the premium be covered. They moved them into these high, these great plans, where it was not necessary for them to have the Cadillac. They could get by with a lesser plan. But if the government's going to pay 80-90% of your premium, then you're going to I'll take the top tier plan, where instead of the plan I had before. But what happens if you just go ahead and go back to a plan you had before? It's probably not that unaffordable at this stage.
Yeah.
And we're 9 days in, and the world hasn't fallen apart since these enhanced benefits expired. So lots of crocodile tears going on here. So
Don, it's like this. How the
them together.
Yeah, see, Don, it's kind of like, remember when Joe Biden? People get used to paying more for gas. They'll get used to paying what they used to pay for health insurance, But yeah.
And then lastly, kind of on a somber note, want to rest in peace to Michael Reagan, 80 years old. I don't know that I saw what he passed away from. I don't know if they released that yet, but if there was ever any stronger defender of the Reagan legacy, this Michael Reagan definitely, compared to some people in his family,
Patty, Ron,
David. So, but yeah, he was great. He was wonderful. He was an upstanding guy, and we will miss him. So
I got to meet him actually at CPAC back when I was working for ACU CPAC.
That's great.
Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, But I mean, Michael Reagan, good stand-up guy.
Yeah, he was.
By the way,
it was what a great story he had too. So great guy. Yeah. All right, that's it. Back to you, Dwight.
Well, let's see. My final thoughts are: one, does everyone have to go to the grocery store when I go? And by the way, you know how Montgomery County now you got those paper bags now, right? It used to be you could use those plastic bags, but what happens when the store runs out of paper bags? I was at the Kensington Safeway, and they were out of paper bags. They were out. They had no paper bags. And I'm like, I mean, luckily I had a crate in my car because Patel Brothers, by the way, gives you a crate to put your stuff in and take it out if you don't want to pay the 10 cents, which I think is great. And luckily, I had that crate in my car, so I was able to put everything in the car and then wheel the cart over and then put everything in the crate, But I mean,
wait a minute. So did they give you the crate? Or did you steal the crate?
no, they give you over by the register. They got they got crates piled up, and you can just take them.
Cool.
And I usually bring them back because I don't want them sitting in my house, And then I usually end up just taking whatever I bought in that crate again. But although they've got really nice paper bags, they got handles on their paper bags over there at the Patel Brothers. But it's just, I really don't like this bag tax at all. It's like by the way, though, here's the question. Here's the funniest part about the whole thing, Don. When you go buy tomatoes, guess what kind of bag I get to put the tomatoes in? Plastic bags for the vegetables and stuff like that. So it's okay for me to use that plastic bag, but I can't have a plastic bag to carry my groceries out in. And didn't we switch from paper?
Talking about the bags that are available throughout the produce. Yeah.
I mean, didn't we switch from paper to plastic?
Interesting point.
I don't want to say too loud. I don't want Mark Elric to get any ideas. But I mean, didn't we go from paper to plastic because it was bad for the environment for us to use all this paper?
All right. So now you make me think it's like, so should my newspaper come wrapped in paper and not plastic? My Wall Street
just
Journal?
like at the butcher, like when you buy a steak at the butcher, they put it in the, that's how they need to send you your newspaper. Come on, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Washington Times. Does Washington Times actually, do they do home deliveries still or no?
I don't know if they still do, but not that many people get home delivered newspapers anymore.
Yeah, I got an online subscription to the Baltimore Sun, and I got a call saying, well, we'd like to give you a paper copy of the Baltimore. I'm like, no. First of all, I don't live in your media market. I just get it because I want to see the silly stories about Annapolis you run. But Baltimore Sun has gotten a lot better than what they used to be. But that's about it. And also, speaking of, we've got a sponsor. We got to talk about our sponsor, Masoni's Restaurant in Perry Hall, Maryland. Check them out. They've got great food, great people. Visit them over there in Perry Hall, Maryland. Wonderful people and wonderful food. And you are right. Yes, you're right. But Don, do you remember we used to put grass clippings in those black hefty bags? Like I know, like growing up, that's what I would always, take the bag, put them in there. Then I'm trying to think when, I think it was in the 90s, they decided to go and say, hey, we need to use these paper bags, Also, Don, this week also marks, other than President Nixon's birthday today, but in 1996, we had the blizzard. The big blizzard, the back-to-back snowstorms we had. And you know what happened after the snow melted away? I came to an interview at Accuracy Media, and you hired me.
No.
Yes. In 1996.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah, time flies. But with that said, good night, everyone. We'll see everyone next week. And go check out Chris Burnett. Give him $5 for his campaign.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right.
Good
See
night.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's go down to Masoni's, where Italian cuisine shines.